Hello and welcome to the dark side. I'm your host, one of your hosts, Tabitha Purple, and this is The Storm. Hello, welcome.
So,
Yeah, what's that so disaffected? It's hilarious. Okay, so for those of you that are watching this back, as you know, this is the dark side, and we are so happy to be with you today. I am going to stick a banner on that reminds you that you should put all questions and everything, any contributions, any thoughts in our chat so we can interact with you. You know how much we love talking to y'all. It's great. So today we've got an interesting show. We've got kind of like a split personality show going on, a tale of two halves, if you will. One half of the show is going to be tackling something really difficult, really uncomfortable, and the other one could be seen as light-hearted, but it is the dark side of nursery rhymes that we're going to get to today. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please, as I say, add your comments in the comment section so that we can see you, say hello, interact with you. You know how much we enjoy chatting. All right, so in news, let's open with our news segment, as we always do. In news this week, it was Black Friday. Did you all survive? Did your bank balances survive? Have you managed to get out of Black Friday okay? I think we should do one day the dark side of Black Friday, you know. He's just looking at me. Mr. Storm, you okay there? Are you frozen? I think you might be frozen.
no, I'm just playing with you.
Oh my gosh. Messing with me hard. I was like, come on now. Come on. What you doing? What you saying? Okay, well, you know, Black Friday, what you will. I hope you all survived. Look out for your shopaholic friends. They suffered for weeks leading into Black Friday, and now Christmas is coming. This is a nightmare season for any shopaholics out there. I feel you. We can do this. That's all I can say on that one. All right. Our second news story for today is about the riots that we've been seeing breaking out in the Netherlands. So we've had people shot, people arrested, people convicted very quickly, I might say, in the Netherlands for the riots and protests that have been happening against the corona rules and other such things. It's been quite divisive in the country. People have been quite alarmed. We were asked to talk about this one in some depth, but we may have to do that another time. But I just wanted to mention that things are not all peaceful in Europe. Europeans are feeling very, very much affected by these new corona rules, and with the latest Omicron, is it Omicron or Omicron? One variant that has been identified this week. Panic has taken hold of the world, and yeah, it's not good. So keep your loved ones in prayer. We have had our own incidents and challenges with the coronavirus. We've lost loved ones. So look after people. See what you can do. All right. In next, more European news. For those of you that join us from abroad, I like to keep you informed of what's happening here in Europe. We have 27 people who died in a boat crossing on the Channel. So these are people who are trying to get from mainland Europe into Britain. If you believe the way that the media spin everything, you would think that these people, in some cases, in some quarters of media would say that they deserve to die. It feels like, you know, these illegal people doing their illegal actions got what they deserved. But I think the startling thing is if we miss our humanity, we'll miss the bigger stories that are happening there. These are people who are affected from various areas and who are trying to get to be in a place where they can be safe. And that means going through treacherous waters, literally, to get there. And there are some interesting conversations to be had. Nonetheless, I think the best one was in Parliament. If you want to look it up, there was a gentleman from the opposition who got up and he ripped Priti Patel, an entirely new one based on her own data, out of her own offices. It was beautiful. God bless the man who got up and put her right. We appreciate him. Anything you want to add?
I think that was a speech in the House of Lords, that
Yes.
one. Well, I just think that people are saying that the people crossing the channel in these boats are doing it illegally. They're not. They're asylum seekers. Okay. So they're trying to get to safety. And I think one of the things that needs to be pointed out is that the biggest number of asylum seekers are coming from Iran, I think it was,
Yeah.
in the dinghies, in the boats. They're coming from Iran.
Yeah.
And what the person in the House of Lords speaks about, I think it was in the House of, anyway, I think he says it in a speech. I may have read it somewhere else. That the official route for asylum seekers only took one person
Mm-hmm.
in the past 18 months.
Yep.
So think about that. You have thousands crossing in boats because the official program that they set up to deal with asylum seekers from Iran in 18 months only took one person. So here's the thing. Let's assume that they were illegal. They're not, but let's assume that they are. If you were faced with the choice of entering a country illegally in order to be safe or waiting to go through a process that you know has only admitted one person out of thousands, tens of thousands in 18 months, what choice would you make?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that he even spoke about the numbers that we talk about are so overly inflated.
Hmm.
And that really, when you drill down into the numbers, you're not talking about, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people coming across the channel and so on and so forth. And that those numbers are just a fallacy, and they're created to stir up anxiety in people who already have challenging circumstances, who already are feeling marginalized and pushed to the edge. And therefore, when they see anyone from another community living next door to them, they have this inflated sense of idea that there are millions of them out there struggling to get to UK. And actually, the UK is one of the lowest. People don't
In
want to come
Europe,
here.
they take the least. They
They
take
take the least number of people,
the
and
least big
also
number of people.
when they ask, people don't want to come here. People have no desire to be in the UK. The numbers of people who want to come here are actually less than they've ever been. And primarily the reason that people would come to the UK is based on language, and it's based on family. If you have extended family somewhere, if you understand the language already, then you might feel more comfortable traveling to that space. So I think there are a lot more factors to bear in mind than simply suggesting that people want to go to Britain. I think that's just an old colonial mentality that really bears putting to bed somewhere, in my opinion, of course. But yes, that's our news story. I think on this one, I will say maybe you should watch out for next year when I ask Mr. Storm to take the one on why he believes that there should be no more countries. Because that right there, that one, that will have your mind tripping. It took me probably over a year, I think, to really wrestle with what you were saying
More
to
than
me,
a year. More,
to
more,
work
more
out
than a year.
what you were actually saying and really try and process. Because I was like, of course you need a country. What are you talking about? This one took me a little while. Even this one took me a while to get to the dark side of the term country and borders and what that actually meant in the end for the people who live there. And recently I found myself asking, what if there was just one set of rules that applied to every single country? What would happen? Really, what would happen? What do people think? Like, people don't want to leave their home. That's not what wants to happen. What happens? Not very many people travel to other countries anyway. So it got me to think. It's got me thinking. But maybe next year we do a dark side of the term country and that ideology. Who knows? But our final news story for today, we'll move on to that, is about a police officer out of the United States of America. See, I haven't forgotten you. I remembered you guys. And this police officer is convicted of raping more than one woman. He is sentenced to 15 years, which the judge goes, 15 years for a police officer who raped women. No, I'm sure the women are fine. So what I'll do is I'll just suspend that and give you 4 years at home. It beggars belief. I can't, I'm still trying to process this new story. I don't even know what to say. I think it's just shocking that we keep talking about this pretty much every single week, that it comes up time and again, that the misogyny that underpins our societies, that talk about the fact that rape is nothing and it's not getting the conviction rates, that women are not believed, that they're triple tortured when they report. And also men, of course, there is statistics out there on men, but predominantly women, you know, go through this awful, it takes your humanity away from you incident like this. I don't even know how to describe it. It just it is shocking. And then you go to, if you make it, if you're the 1 in 100 that makes it to the courtroom situation, and if you're the 1 in 100 that then gets a conviction, you are left with the judge going, oh, did the jury find you guilty and recommend a sentence? Oh no. Oh no, we don't want to ruin his life. We're just going to suspend all normal rules of anything, and we're just going to give him, I don't know, 4 years in his house. It's a pandemic. Everyone's got 4 years in their house.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the predator will be emerging into society just as everyone else is. So, you know, it's like letting the fox into the chicken coop. You know, society gets back to normal, and he's leaving his house at the same time.
And you know, the worst thing about that is locking someone up during, you know, saying you're bound to your house at a pandemic time, when things lock up and then people do go to visit homes, then, you know, 1 per day or whatever your rules are in your country, and it seems normal. I think about all those vulnerable people who'll be looking for dates or whatever, and there's a predator out there who's like, oh, you can come to my house for dinner, I'm a former police officer, I'm safe, look at me, blah 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 blah, you know, and we'll be running off all of that suave energy that they probably have, and we'll be luring people into his personal space and probably still committing the crime right there in his 4 years. Like that's not outside of the bounds of thinking that he could do that. Like he could legitimately do that. And I think that that's really worrying. And I've lost my partner in crime. I don't know what happened there. Oh dear, that's not good. Oh, he's back. Yeah, it's just quite disturbing to think. Hi, welcome back. It's really quite disturbing to think that this person has that level of freedom. And what does being locked up in your house mean? Will he still be able to travel? Is it like an ankle bracelet? You know, is he just going to be able to put something over it and pretend that it doesn't exist? Like, what are we really talking about here? The amount of freedom that this person has is shocking. I don't know. But it brings us on to our first news story. Our first half of our, not even our first news story, the first topic that we're going to talk about today. Take a deep breath. Okay, so in church news, it's the first half. In the Seventh-day Adventist Church, a pastor by the name of Dr. Burnett L. Robinson on the Saturday, November the 13th, preached a sermon in which he took a detour in the sermon to explain that the best person to rape is your wife. As if there are, anyway, let me give the facts so that you're all up to speed with us. So that was done on the November 13th. He works in the Grand Concourse Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it's part of the Greater New York Conference. Okay, so they have like regional offices, and their office is the Greater New York Conference. The leadership, it seems, didn't find out until the first thing they knew was somebody notified them on the 20th. So there were sermon on the 13th, and they were notified on the 20th when it begins to go viral. Somebody had seen this, recorded a copy of it, and took that portion of the sermon and was sending it viral. Within 2 days, they convened their meeting. So they found out on Saturday the 20th. On the Monday, they took the meeting straight away, placed this man on leave, and 3 days later, on the 24th, he resigned his post and his pastoral role. He no longer works for that conference. When you look, this is not the man's first incident. He preached a sermon back in August 24th of 2019. It was entitled "In the Light of the Me Too Movement." Overall, he was trying to say, it seems, in that sermon, if you listen to the totality of it, assault is bad. It should not happen. You should press charges. People should be held accountable for their actions. And he was using the story of David of Bathsheba. However, again, the sermon managed to take another detour in which he started to talk about the Epstein case and how there are women just lining up to get famous men, and they're out to get us, even us pastors. And he continued on a rant about how women will get you. Deep breath, because going back to 2011, the court he was working in Florida. The court records there from February 23rd, 2011 says that a woman files an injunction, a protection against repeat violent offenses against him. He's not charged with a crime. The woman, unfortunately, isn't available for contact, so we don't know her side of the story. And of course, he's not taking any calls. So I think that gives you an overview of what happened. This case went viral. It's a smaller denomination. Not everybody knows what a Seventh-day Adventist is, but this thing went viral. It hit the Washington Post.
I think Washington Post.
Times. Something.
Something.
One of those things. It spread like wildfire. I mean, thousands and thousands of people have been talking about this. There is a petition now, since he's resigned, to actually hold the North American division, which is the overall governing body for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in that area of the world, to account, to say that there needs to be changes on the ground. That petition was set at requiring 200 people, and it did not get thousands. It barely got to 200 as far as I could tell right now. So if you check out either of our,
it got over the 200 mark. I checked in
over
on
the
it.
200. Oh well, that's
200.
a
They're aiming
wonderful.
for 500 now, but yeah.
Yeah, it took some time because I saw when it was posted and when I signed it, and then I was like, what is happening here? So I posted it. The case of Dr. Burnett L. Robinson poses a number of challenges, a number of problems. Would you like to go first? Because I had to take a deep breath. I had to give the news of the thing.
Well, I've you know me, my mouth would have been on that man. That service would have been done, finished there on the spot the moment those words left his mouth. Because I would have gotten up and I would have caused a scene. We're not continuing with that. No, no, that has to be addressed there, then, and immediately. And I know people are going to come out with that line. Seventh-day Adventists love to talk about this, reverence a sanctuary. Well, here's the thing. In my opinion, he defiled the sanctuary with that statement. And it needs to be cleansed, right? The statistics on violence against women, sexual abuse, etc., are so horrific that without a doubt there are members of his congregation, there would have been women sitting there who would have been victims of abuse, that would have heard somebody condone violence against them, and not one person got up to defend them. It just doesn't happen on my watch. I don't care. You know me. I don't stand on airs and graces. I just don't care about social norms. Whatever. I just
No,
don't.
I think for me, when I hear this point about the fact that the sermon was preached in its totality and nothing happened, No one said anything. And it took a further 7 days for anyone to even flag up that this should have been a problem. You know, I think for me, what challenges me is I'm a female minister. I go into churches all the time, sometimes the ones I pastor, sometimes other people's churches. And I've had people disrupt a service because I'm a woman, not because of anything else, but because I'm a woman. So I have people try that behavior, and that was acceptable. But somebody, male, can get up and talk about rape from the pulpit, and ain't nobody in the whole, I mean, I can imagine it's shocking, but after that shock wears off, because I would have gasped. I'd have been like, did we just did pastor just say? I can imagine there was a moment of horrified shock, but what seems to have happened was almost like a nervous giggle, and then nothing. And it took so long for them to take down the video, to send a notice up to the man's boss, to actually trigger anything to sort out and resolve that situation. For me, that's disturbing, because if a church even hears that a woman's going to be their pastor, they can send letters in 5 seconds. I'm telling you, they will hear, we might be getting sister so and so as our pastor, and you will find people can write letters in seconds. But you're telling me that your misogyny runs so high that a person can condone rape from a pulpit? Rape said the best person to rape is your wife, dare I say, is what he said. And I'm like, so there are other people you can do that to? Hold on, wait, what?
Yeah, they're just not optimal.
They're not optimal
You know?
people, but you should do that to your wife. But these other people are available. If your wife is not, then I mean, take that need elsewhere. That's really frightening to me. That's really scary. And as a woman, that's very scary. Like, it's
Look,
literally very frightening.
What if he's comfortable to say that in public? I am worried about what he does in private. And it would seem to suggest that these Florida documents, say I have every right to be concerned about what he does in private. And I think this is the other thing. I think about, if someone in my family had been subjected to that, and I went and heard that fresh, that pain, that wound is fresh, and I heard that in church, I'm meeting you outside at your car,
Yeah, yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
I'm just being real about it. I'm
yeah,
meeting you at your car.
yeah.
We
Speak on it. No, I mean,
it's
I
gonna
have
be
said,
you're
like,
gonna catch these hands. That's all I'm saying. You know?
I always pray that Jesus and the Christianity and my love for him is the overriding factor, but I'm human. Like, you gotta say something like that, and there's gonna be violence that follows next. I can see that, just because that conflict, the fight or flight response, even the fear that, like, it's really overwhelming. And I
Listen,
think, yeah, I
the
can't imagine that there were people sat there, and this is the thing, the question has been asked, but he just said, he called it out by name, that which everyone's been dancing around all this time. This is what this crappy purity culture theology and this headship theology idea, that is really not based in biblical scripture, but based in some patriarchal mess. This is the result of it. He just put the icing on a very long nail that has been nailed into women for a long time. How many male pastors have condoned rape without using that word? He was just brave enough to say it. He just called a spade a spade. But for the rest of them, we got a problem, because y'all been teaching this. He's not alone. It took a week, over a week, for this to get out. And then once it started to create a buzz and reached outside of the church, let's be truthful now, once it got high enough that it reached outside of the church, then we got some movement. That's really scary, because now all those men, all those male pastors who agree with that ideology that a woman is their property, because that's also what he talked about. You don't belong to yourself as a woman. You belong to him now. You don't have rights. This is normal language.
Listen,
So all of that, where is that going to come now?
I think you're right in that it is scary. How many people do agree with his ideology and his theology? And for me, the biggest indicator is in the silence that this petition could have been started. It's known, people know it exists, but it's struggling to get 200 signatures. Well, there's more than 200 pastors in the United States alone, right? Uh, Goodness knows how many there
Name
are,
on it.
thousands there are worldwide, and you're struggling to get signatures. Well, here's the thing. If you don't agree with it, you are complicit in your silence,
Mm,
right? So don't talk to me about any of this mess, right?
yeah.
Um, and listen, I want to go in on the individuals, but the organization has a lot to answer for.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this pastor was allowed to resign his post instead of being fired. He should have been fired. His credentials should have been stripped from him, because what you will find now is that because he still has his credentials, he can just move somewhere else,
Apply for another
right?
post.
The
Start
Adventist
all over.
Church, the Adventist Church is the theological institution or the theological institutional equivalent of the police in the US. You do wrong, you move to another location. You
Mm.
get another job within the institution,
If you're a boy.
right? Well, listen, let's be real. It's very rarely female police officers that do wrong and get to move on,
Well, there's that. There is that. We don't get the chances to be wrong. We
right?
don't have, no, we don't have those options. Happily, thankfully, we don't have those options. There are so
Right,
few of us, and we have to be above and beyond the extra hard working,
right. So yeah, I think the organization has failed. It has absolutely failed and abdicated its responsibility to protect vulnerable members within its worldwide congregation. He should never have been allowed to resign. He should never be in the position where he can be employed within the institution again.
And that's the next steps. So the next, and this is what that petition's about, but this is also what some of us are trying to say to our local unions, but also to the world church, which is we need to do something to ensure that his membership, he's not in good and regular standing. We have this phrase within Seventh-day Adventism that to be a member, you must be in good and regular standing. There is nothing good about condoning rape from a pulpit. That his credentials should come into question. And people have talked about, well, that's a slow process, but it is entirely possible to suspend someone's credentials pending a union-wide meeting so that it
Stop
will be
that.
confirmed.
Stop that mess. Because if he had stolen and was thrown into jail, his credentials are gone in an instant, in the
Well,
twinkling of an eye.
well, but I'm telling you the mechanisms. I'm telling you the political mechanisms or the mechanisms behind the scenes, and I'm telling you those for a reason because I think it's important to understand when we talk about worldwide organizations, they do move slow. It is possible, and this is what I'm saying, it's possible to speed them up. However, it's possible to do things to encourage them to be at their best. Big organizations are notoriously slow across the board, whether it's in a church or in a whatever institution. However, this, the fact that committees have to meet, etc., can be a slow process. Slow, but not impossible. It's
Listen,
entirely possible to suspend the person's credentials There's precedence. It's been done before. Dare I
No,
say, for quite serious things.
I
Pending
disagree with that.
the union
No
meeting.
organization is slow. It
Okay.
only depends on the organization's priorities. If he had come out and said, I am gay, he gone.
Well, and we've seen
He's
that.
gone. He will
Yeah,
never
we've
be
seen that.
seen in a pulpit again.
I'm laughing, but I'm laughing out of horror in some ways. I don't want anyone to take that incorrectly. Like I do not condone that. Like I don't condone that action. Like just because someone comes out as gay, they need to be removed from the pulpit. I don't condone that as an action. I'm laughing because, as a woman, you're taught that as a mechanism to cope. Like this person condoned rape, marital rape, just like, and all other forms of rape by the absence of his, you shouldn't rape anybody else. At least you should only rape. He could have said you should only rape your wife. But he chose to say she's the best person to rape, meaning that there are other people you can do that to. And neither of those are good. None. He shouldn't have said either of them, but he shouldn't even think either of them. He should know better. But like, as a woman sitting there having to listen to deal with that, to hear it, you end up with nervous laughter because you're just like, this man is coming for my life. Like you're coming for the very essence of who we are as a human, to sexually violate someone in such a violent manner. There is no other way of doing that. Rape is violent. It violently violates the person's humanity. It's horrifying. But yes, you are correct. It depends on a church's priorities.
Right.
So this
And
is
and so for me, then you get to see just how much or where women sit in that list of priorities. Because
real low,
it's low.
real low,
I can give
real
you a
low.
list of things. I can give you a list of things that he would have been gone for.
Yeah.
Right? He would have been sacked for.
Yep.
But he was not sacked for this.
No, and the turnaround is quick. In fairness, it's 3 days between suspending him and his resignation. It was a quick turnaround.
Resignation.
But even that came with some controversy because, of course,
Okay.
the first statement was, I'm resigning from the post at blah, 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 not I'm resigning as a pastor. The clarification had to come a few days later that he had resigned from everything, not just his post, but also his job. Your pastoral job is gone. You jeopardize the right to be a pastor.
Right.
Like,
But here's the thing. Why did that clarification have to come? Because there was a lot of uproar and outcry over the original statement.
Listen, the pastors were like, I know many pastors who work out in the States, they were in fury. But here's something that I guess, this is something that troubles me. So the Seventh-day Adventist Church, like any church, has its celebrity pastors. All denominations have their celebrity. They're well-known pastors who are, they're internal celebrities. Should you see this pastor from that denomination, he's the celebrity pastor. Every church has it. It's cultural to the world, I guess, right? And so we have our celebrity pastors. We have those who are at the top of the pile, so to speak, of people who are well known. What worries me is that I don't remember no statements coming out from some of these cats. Like, these dudes were not saying nothing. You had a lot of the celebrity pastors, particularly in the extremist camp, and not one word has been said.
Ted Wilson?
You have the heads of the organizations. And, I have to say, in this instance, I'm really, really pleased that the North American division, which is the national body, stepped into the situation audibly, vocally, and at the forefront of the conversation, and was like, no, we don't tolerate this. We have an End It Now campaign, and we're standing by the End It Now campaign. This dude, we're going to discipline this. And they came in, and I was really pleased that they came in so audibly, because there was an absence from the celebrity, let's call them the celebrity pastors, those pastors at the top of the pile who could have all come out at that point and said, Members, this is wrong.
Listen,
Let's tap that one on the head and never speak of that again.
I want
Nothing.
to know where Ted Wilson was in all of this. Because the reality is, it was a service that was live streamed, which
Mhm,
means this video went all over the world. It's
mhm,
a viral clip now.
mhm.
And the person who is meant to be at the top of the pyramid in the worldwide Seventh day Adventist church has been missing. MIA. Yeah? He has fully ghosted out. If you want to find him, you need to call Ghostbusters.
Well, and I think that this is a challenge. So one of my pastoral colleagues posted recently, you as pastors before the pandemic, you might have pastored a sleepy church, tiny little, because you had to remember most pastors, most people who work in the pastoral field, pastor very small churches in local communities. We don't earn much money. We do the job that we're meant to. We're there for the people in our local community. We don't know nobody. We're not making no waves around the world. We're just doing the work of God, right? We're just doing the small level thing. But with the start of the pandemic and everyone live streaming, people became world pastors. You may have been your grandma's, this local small community with 50 members, 20 members. But once that community had to close their doors and you went live online, now everybody's pastor. Now everyone can see what you're saying. And if you're not mindful of what you say, of course, for good or for bad, you're pastoring the world. You're no longer pastoring your tiny little corner. Now, I've been in online ministry for near on 12 years now. And I've been doing this a long time. I've done training for people on being an online pastor. I've encouraged people in the online ministry, held people accountable, helped them to start ministries, supported behind the scenes. But one thing that I know about being online is that, listen, the things that we say on the dark side, these are going to come back and kick me in the butt like tomorrow. They can come back and kick me in the butt 20 years from now. If somebody doesn't like what I said or does like what I said, this thing can blow up at any point. You can get egg on your face. You can get praised at any point, because once it's out there, it's out there. And this is a lesson that this church had to learn. They thought that simply taking down the video was enough, but somebody had recorded that clip to make sure they had the evidence so they could take it to the union. Because once it's online, of course, people can take recordings, they can take images, they can take these things as evidence of who you are. And so this guy is just one, I think, of many pastors around the world, not just in the Seventh-day Adventist church, because when I look back on certain pages today, there are more scandals coming out this week of pastors in other denominations who have been convicted of rape, who the institution is trying to replace at the church. And it's like, don't send the rapist here. Like, we don't want, and it's causing conflict. Like, these are not, I was going to say common occurrences, but that's not what I mean. It's not unusual to have these situations, but now it's blowing up for everyone to see. Where is your ability to actually dig in and sort out your theology, sort out your training, ensure that what you say is not causing harm? Like doctors take that do no harm oath. Like, I feel like, instead of ordaining pastors, what we need to do? Make them promise to do no harm. Hey, you want to be a pastor? Cool. First, promise that you're going to do no harm to people. Because if that was just the overriding function, this may solve a lot of things. Because when you break that promise and you hurt people, out. Let's go. You can leave. Like, serious. Nah, man. No. Nope.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I said, I'm not happy with the institution and how it's handled this. And looking at the guy's age, he's old. So, I had a conversation with someone about this, and they said, well, they think what they were trying to do, why they didn't fire him or sack him, was to do with his pension. Now, here's the thing. I get he's old, and the reality is, as heinous as his statement is and his comment is, I can understand not wanting to leave the person high and dry in their old age and feeling a responsibility towards them. Okay, fine. Sort that out in the severance package.
Mm,
Yeah, but fire him. Strip him of his credentials and fire him.
mm, mm,
Right? You can give him compensation, whatever, you can work out his pension, whatever. Do that in the severance package, do that in the
mhm,
settlement, but
mhm,
you need to make a statement and say, "This is not going to happen, and we will not allow you to go elsewhere and make similar statements." And the fact is, if he has this history of doing things like this,
mhm.
you should have sacked him years ago.
Listen,
The fact of the
listen, that's
matter is, you
always
know what?
the
I'm getting
way.
angry again. I'm getting angry again because the fact of the matter is, it took the video going viral for him to lose his job. If it did not go viral, he'd still be employed today.
Yeah, yeah. If somebody hadn't whistleblown, if somebody hadn't reported it, nobody would know, you know. If somebody hadn't had the presence of mind to record what he said and actually keep what he said so that it can be used as evidence,
No, man.
he'd have just gone on and done it again. Yeah, the thing is, I think for me, you know, being a pastor is challenging. It's hard work. I love it. It's amazing. Being able to be with people in their stories, help them walk on their journeys is so thoroughly rewarding. Teaching the good news, sharing the gospel, it is thoroughly rewarding. But it is the dark side of our ministry that the studies and statistics say that narcissists are drawn to um are drawn to um pastoral work because of the access it allows you to people's lives. And then that calls into question all of the genuine people around the world who are sitting in their small local community, running their food banks, running their elderly clubs, looking after their small members. It calls that into question and it challenges our faith to the core. And I've spoken openly about my dislike of American theological positions and how, especially during this Trump era, everything has just been, you're almost apologizing as a pastor, yeah. Oh, what do you do? I'm a pastor of a Christian church. I'm so sorry. We're not like those people who are hateful. No, 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 not those ones. We're the ones that like people, those Christians. But when stories like this come out, it challenges you even more because your very organization isn't standing up and saying, actually, we're just going to sack you. Actually, we're going to look through the books and make sure there's no one else like you. Actually, we're going to run some training courses to ensure that every single pastor goes through something safe. Actually, we're going to do this. And as I said, for me, the North American division, rating them, very well done. You stepped in, well done. It's a big organization. It's a big mechanism. They have an End It Now program. So for me, I can only continue to say well done, depending on what you do next. Are you actually going to actually make proper steps to make churches safe environments for people to go into? Like, how are you going to do that? I see we have
So,
a comment though.
yeah, Daniel has asked, how long have these things been said before social media? Daniel, to answer your question, I would say probably the very second that Eve stepped out of the Garden of Eden.
Well, she didn't even need to step out before
Well,
he
I was
was
about to
saying
say,
he saw her first. You
it
know what I
started
mean?
inside, yeah? The woman you gave me.
The woman
Um,
you gave me, from that moment on, we've been doing this. No, I think it's, but as I say, I think there's a real tearing of points here because what I think, so if I stand back as a pastor, and I think this is something that we have to understand now about churches, not just the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but churches across Western Europe, have had this struggle, and it's with this thing called purity culture and headship theology. And one of the things about this is that it makes sexuality a problem for a woman and not for a man. And what that does of completely sexualizing everything about a woman and making it all her responsibility and making it all her fault, making everything about her responsibility. You're going to step in?
Yeah, I just want to say I think I have a slightly different view on the issue of it, of the purity culture, because I believe it makes sexuality the problem of the man, but the responsibility of the woman.
Right. As you said it, that's the best way of saying it. Thank you. Love you when you do that. And because of that, what that has done is most people haven't used the word rape. Most people have realized that rape is a bad word and you shouldn't say that. So you wouldn't have heard that used to answer your question, how long have they been said? You wouldn't have probably heard that. What he said would have sounded quite shocking. But what would you have heard that would have been the description of rape? You would have heard the very description of the action. And so that description would have been her body. Once you get married, your body's not on your own. You're not allowed to say no. Postpartum, after having a baby, come on, women, you know, you're just going to have to get with it straight away and give it to him, even if you don't want to, even if you don't feel up to it, no matter what mood you're in, no matter what you're going through, no matter how you've been sliced and diced as a woman, you have to give this man sex because he can't go 5 minutes. Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. But what you're actually hearing is the boundaries are being lowered, and you're hearing the somebody say it's okay to rape your wife, because in all of those circumstances that they're speaking of, the woman has said no, and you're being taught that actually let's override the no and actually say she said yes and make her say yes.
It's coercion. The
It's
word you're looking for is coercion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's all. So you will have heard all of this repeatedly, and you will have, and I remember hearing this as a child. I've been hearing this since I was a teenager. Like these are normal things for pastors and leaders in churches to talk about, that you don't have an option. There is no in marriage as a woman. There is no saying no to your husband. You don't use sex as a weapon. You don't do this. You can never turn it down. If he wants it, you have to give it. If you can't do it because it's that time of the month, then you had to use other parts of your body to satisfy his need. All of that is condoning what he basically ended up saying. He basically ended up saying the conclusion of the argument. He just skipped all of that and just went to the end and was like, okay, so you can rape your wife, because that's basically what we've been talking about all this time, except not in a ironic, you shouldn't do it kind of way. He actually said you should. So I think, to answer your question, yes, these things have been talked about. But they haven't been talked about. You wouldn't have heard frequently from many pastors. I'm not going to say it's never been said, because I don't think it's frequently been said that rape is okay, but all of the actions of rape would have been okay. So they would have described what rape is. Your wife says no, and as a husband, you have a right to take it. That's rape. Your wife is on a period and she says no, and you have a right to make her do something. That's rape. Your wife is struggling with something, you are struggling with something, blah, 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 blah. You're having difficulties in a marriage and she's finding it difficult to get aroused. You have to force her to have sex because it's your right as a man. That's rape. Like, you would have heard that, but you wouldn't have necessarily heard the word. So that's what I'm saying. Have I read Womanist Midrash? I wish I could get my hand on it. It's somewhere here on the shelf. I have it somewhere. It's in the process. I'm about halfway through. I'm halfway through a lot of books. It's a very good book.
Yeah, I haven't. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere here.
Yeah.
It's a big set of bookshelves, so I couldn't put my hand on it right away.
There was another point I wanted to bring up about this, but I got sidetracked with
and you got kicked out as well, so that didn't help.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's terrible. It's awful. I'm not happy with the way that the organization has handled it, and I'm not happy with the way that individual pastors have handled it. That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
And Daniel, you know what? I will try and read it. On your recommendation, I will try and read it. Right. What I wanted to say was, if a teacher had said that, we'd be calling for their head. If a doctor had said that, we will be calling for their head, right? If a nurse had said that, if a police officer had said that, we would be calling for their head. We
Yeah.
wouldn't be saying let them resign. We'd be calling for them to be sacked. Now, the
Yeah.
reality is, pastors are in a position of authority and care and responsibility. So, allowing him to resign was a mistake. And the fact of the matter is that there are not more pastors publicly screaming about this is problematic for me. And you talk about narcissism within pastors in the profession of being a pastor. Here's the real identifier for whether you're a narcissist or not, or whether you're actually a pastor. You see how pastors love to say they are there to shepherd the flock. Where are you shepherding right now? Where are you protecting the vulnerable, the flock, from the predator? Hmm? Where are you with your shepherd's rod? Pun intended.
Unintended, right?
Um,
I saw you.
pun
It's too
intended.
good to resist.
Where are you with your sling? Hmm?
Yeah.
Where are you in all of this?
Yeah.
You should be standing at the front of this,
Yeah.
because the reality is, when a predator comes for the flock, the shepherd steps in between the threat and the flock. And if you don't have the kahunas to put your head above the parapet, stick your name on a petition, stick your face on the internet, and say, no, he should have been sacked, you need to go too.
I'm so grateful that I know so many good pastors that have all said that this week publicly. So I'm really happy. But I know the point that you're making. In that moment, I'm like, oh, so many of my loved ones would disappear. No, they wouldn't, because all of the ones that I know and work with have all come out publicly and said, nope, nope, nope. And we've lamented in public over this, and I think that I knew this. I knew that Sunday was coming, so I knew I could hold off on all my opinions until today. I knew that I had that time. I don't work in the Studs Union. I'm not, part of the organization in that regard. But I knew I had time to be able to respond wisely. And I think that when I saw the petition, so now I'm just going to say from my perspective, there's an option. When you sign any petition, you have the option to have your name known publicly or to have it known privately. And you can just tick a button to say you don't want, you can just go down as unknown, person who signed the petition, but the person who then holds the petition will have your name. And I looked at that button and I went, no, I think everyone needs to know that I signed it and it's a pastor that signed it. And I think that all of my colleagues need to sign it and it's the pastors that signed it. Because I think it's important that we stand for what is right, that we stand up and we say these things are not to be accepted in our profession. They're not to be accepted. We are a caring profession, kin to, counselors and chaplains, and we're made up of all sorts of people. And when we have people in our care, the church members are in our care. We are responsible for their care. We're responsible to look after them, even when they refuse us, even when they're mean to us, even when they try to burn down the building with us in it. Even through all of that, we are responsible. And if we can be responsible through all of that, then at the time when I'm getting messages from church members around the world, within hours of this thing going viral, the church members start messaging me, Pastor, I'm hurt. I don't know what to say. I'm hurt because I don't understand how can someone say that, because I was raped. That's what they're saying to me. I was raped by my husband. And now this man got up in a pulpit and basically said it didn't happen. No one should report that as a crime. It shouldn't be nothing wrong with that. I should just accept it. No, I can't go on and just allow those people to believe that's what I would think as their minister. No way. No way. So I agree with you. And that's why I stood up and put my name very publicly and said, hey, this is where I'm standing. This is where I'm at. Posted it on my Facebook page and said, yo, I would like everyone else to sign it too. And requested that. And some of my peoples have come through with their signatures. And I appreciate everyone that has signed that as a result of that. But yeah. It's similar to Daniel makes this point, and I think this is a really great point. I think we're not going to get to the second half of our show today. I think we're just going to have to wrap on this one. Well, listen, I think that across the globe, because we could take this to the American conversation, which I think is slightly different, but across the globe, people are asking for a better accountability, even in police forces that work to do the jobs that they're actually meant to do. So, there are countries in which you live where they do their actual job of solving crime, like their thing. But even that is fraught with racist overtones, etc. And you're asking for the accountability. The type of accountability that I would love to see for pastors is that it's mandatory for us to have supervisors, that it's mandatory for us to have accountability in that way with direct line supervisors. We don't really have that. Most pastors work independently. They have an employing body. Sometimes it's a local church. Sometimes it's a national body. But I think that accountability of having professionals, like, when you're a counselor, you have to be accountable to an actual supervisor, and you have to have a supervisor to practice. I think in the same way, because supervisors are then a system, a network. It's organized. It can actually then clamp down on the bad ones. Once a supervisor flags this particular pastor as a problem, that will set off a mechanism that's outside of maybe church members who are vulnerable needing to report it or other things. And so I think supervision is a great way of doing that for pastors. And currently the systems that I've seen, there are very many denominations that have great mechanisms for supervising their pastors. Obviously that's true because there keeps being scandal after scandal. There is institutional problems within quite a few denominations, abuse scandals of children, etc., etc., etc. So I think that it is kind of accountable like the police. I mean, we have slightly different jobs. So I think actually what would be better is supervision in a counseling sense, because that would help pastors to process also what they're dealing with. So I think it's a two-way street. There should be accountability, but there should also be help. What a lot of pastors deal with on a daily basis is traumatic. You're dealing with some of the pains and struggles that church members have, and you're taking that all in, not with the counselor's hat on, because a lot of pastors aren't trained counseling. I've got basic training on counseling. I know a few of my other colleagues have either basic or they're trained psychologists or something, but we're not very many. They're not very many available. And so therefore you're dealing with a human being and all of their joy and trauma. And you as a pastor don't necessarily have the training to handle that. And so I think there needs to be better training. I think there needs to be better supervision. There needs to be better accountability. And I think the supervision process, such as something like what they do for counselors, is great because it means that they also have an outlet to get help, because trauma does happen in our workplace, believe it or not.
Yes. I think also in conjunction with that, one of the things that Daniel's talking about is similar to the accountability we're asking for police. One of the other things that is being asked for, because I did equate the church to being the theological equivalent of the police.
Yeah.
is that one of the things they're asking for in relation to police force that I think is they could do with pastors is better screening processes.
Yeah.
Like I got into a disagreement with someone in a Facebook post because they yeah they asked, somebody mentioned on this, and they said, this guy, he said what he said, since somebody said, and the comment was, and we still have issues with female pastors. And so some guy came on and he said, I don't see the correlation. And I said, well, my response to that was, well, I think the point the person was making is, if you don't have standards from men, what is it? Why is it you're now having standards when it comes to women? You clearly don't have any standards. So then just let the women be
Let a
ministers.
lead a woman, let them do their job.
Whoever wants to do it. If you can get up there and say it, it's okay. And he wanted to argue with this. And he came back later and he said that he hadn't seen the video, and apologized for it. But I was just like, the reality is, I forgot what I was going to say now because I started to read Daniel's comment.
Oh, sorry, did I put it up too quickly? Let me just.
No, I forgot what I was going to say now because
Let me put this one back up. So you've got the original one, similar to the accountability from the police.
No, because it was in the conversation. So I said to him, oh, that's what I said. I said, because he was like, he doesn't see the correlation, et cetera, et cetera. He's arguing about it. So I asked a question. Are you saying to me that it is after years of studying and practicing ministry that he finally came to the conclusion that it was acceptable to rape your spouse? Or is it more likely that this was a position that he has always held? Right? So the reality is, you could improve your screening processes. You need to improve your screening processes to weed out people that have these theological fallacies. But also the other thing is, you spoke about narcissism within ministry. Start weeding out some of the narcissists.
Some of the extreme narcissists. Some of those, the diagnostic ones that you need to put in jail sometimes. Anyway, no. Okay, so Daniel raises a point here, which I think is great, which is that screening is good, but power corrupts. Many issues pastors encounter are not discovered until they have power. I love this point because I actually disagree with part of it, because there are many different methods of screening. And so oftentimes we think of screening as, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, Daniel, by the way, we think of screening as kind of getting the C children's check to be safe to work with children. It's a different title.
CRB, they call it in the UK.
CRB in the UK, right? There's a different title in everyone's country, but there is a mechanism by which you can be checked in order to make sure you're safe to work with children. But of course, that mechanism only works if you've already committed the crime and been caught. Like, you have to, so therefore it's quite late. It doesn't catch everyone beforehand. So there's a problem with the screening. So here in where I work in the Netherlands, they have a screening process, a really interesting screening process, in which they employ, or they did when I was employed, where they employ an outside body who does a full psych workup on you. They do personality tests, they do interviews. I mean, you're in there for like a whole day.
Are they still doing that?
Pardon?
Are they still doing that process?
Crickets from me. I don't think they are still doing it. It was done under the previous administration. I don't think the current administration does this, but I was employed under the previous administration. So they have this wonderful process. Now, whether they stuck to it, whether they used it and maxed it out as fully as they could, the reason I love that process, in some ways, it was hard going, don't get me wrong, it was really intense. But it was great for finding out things that would help with this point about power, about corruption, about the weaknesses you may have in your personality that need to be attended to. So, for example, in mine came out that I'm a perfectionist. And so, therefore, I will struggle with certain things. And they highlighted a few things that I will struggle with because I'm a perfectionist. And it's something that the organization can take an active role in helping me to overcome. Right. So
Just to
that makes
interject,
things, yeah.
sorry, but it's also something where you said if you had supervisors, your supervisor could be aware of it and monitor these things.
Right. So it would be a complete package. So if you had a really great process, you're not going to pick up on everyone. I don't believe that's true because people get into stuff, we're human. Like people fall down, people make mistakes, people do things intentionally that are wrong, people change their minds halfway down the road. Anything can happen in the future. But I think you would really radically shift the face, you would radically reduce the workforce, and that might be a challenge. That might be a challenge. You might radically reduce the workforce and have to work in a very different way. That's not a bad thing, just might be different.
You might also have
Um,
happier churches and
you might have
congregations.
happier churches, you might have better theological positions, you might have a lot of differences. But I think that, those kinds of processes, and as I said, it was the previous administration that we had here in the place that I work in, had a really great process for doing that. And it helped then to have that report. I got the report, they got the report. I could take that to my personal supervisor if I had one. They would send it to to a real supervisor. I have my own counselors that I check in with. And I think it's important to see that it's a process. Screening is a process. And at any point that person becomes problematic, you need to pull them. It can be problematic as in, okay, we need to work on this, and then you can go back into the field. It can be, there's all kinds of things that can be done to safeguard that the people, because it can be that you've been fed a wrong ideology or wrong theology, and you've built your whole world view on something that's incorrect, and you can learn and you can change. You don't have, just because you think that, um you don't have to have that, hold that same position. Just because you thought something once doesn't mean you have to hold that position. And the fact that you can change as a pastor is wonderful, because it can be a positive thing for church members to see, hey, look at what the organization did, look at how this person is improved, wow, look at what we're doing as a church, we're growing, we're moving. But I think that in cases like this, it's just really frightening that we're not thinking, okay, bottom line, our whole business is pastors. That's it. That's what we do. That's the whole thing. People like me, people like other pastors around the world, people like this dude, even going out into local communities, working with churches and helping them to flourish. Hey, if that's your entire bread and butter, you need to come up with a better process than having the old boys club sit down, have a conversation, and decide whether this person is okay in their eyes and whether they can get away with covering up and hiding up their stuff. You need to have a better process than that. It just isn't good enough anymore. So he had a psychological screening. I know that you had gone in for it, right? That's right. And it sounds like a good process. Listen, I wish I could work on this process with church organizations, because it drives me insane. And as I say, the last administration had a good grassroots. There was some outworking that they could have done better, but it was a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, all I know is I wouldn't get through any process.
We're gonna laugh at that, but do you know how many people have actually said, Pastor, we love you. Sister Tabitha, we love you. But if your husband was the pastor and you were the assistant, that would just be much better. And for them. And I always smile and I say, well, you need to tell him that. And
Listen,
when you get what you deserve, don't come complaining to me.
ain't nobody want me for that pastor. I listen, I gonna tell you that straight out right now. Ain't nobody want me for that pastor.
I've had church members who want you. But I always tell people,
No,
be
no,
careful
no.
what you ask for, because when you get what you want and it burns, don't come back to me.
Listen,
I long gone. I've got other things to do.
They
This is the joy of being
they
a female
think
minister. Don't mind us.
they want me, but no, no. Ain't nobody want me for the pastor. Listen, I don't want me for a pastor.
Daniel says it will be entertaining. It will, you know, there have been moments when I've thought to just walk out and be like, listen, paycheck's a paycheck, right? They're paying the family anyway. You go in and deal with it, and let me just see the fallout and enjoy the entertainment, Daniel. Enjoy the
Listen,
entertainment. So
Daniel,
far, I
you're
haven't done it.
absolutely right. It will be entertaining. I would find it entertaining. I really would. Because when people come at me with their foolishness, I'm gonna tell them about their foolishness.
Oh, I tell you, I tell you.
Right?
I don't
I
know that we'd
look, that's just
survive.
the reality. I know that for me to be a pastor, I would have to hold my tongue. And it is a skill that I do have. It's just one I choose not to employ.
Can
And
you
if you've
imagine?
watched The Dark Side, you will understand I absolutely choose not to employ that skill.
Oh no, be good to yourself. I think you do quite well here because you're always quite mindful of the fact that you're married to the pastor, like that. So that's like a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is, if I wanted to hold my tongue, I'd sit there, I'd stare at you in the face, and I ain't gonna say nothing, right?
But you have done that.
Yeah, yeah, I
I'm
I
like,
I have done that.
we've had episodes where you looked at me in my face and I had to just keep going. Anyway, you might see me transfer my membership just to watch Hello Somebody. Listen, listen. This is why I enjoy my online ministry because you'll get to watch him do his thing without needing to transfer your
No,
membership
look,
or
look,
do whatever.
I remember when I was younger, I
Oh,
don't
we're
know if
gonna get a good
Daniel
story
was
now.
because Daniel and I, we went to the same church, but I don't think he was there at this point in time. And they used to get up, I've told you this story. They used to get up and they used to say, ask the young people. They used to do it every so often, every 6 months or so. What do you want from church? And they'd organize these afternoon programs around it. And you spend your time putting in the effort, giving them the answers, and they'd never do any of it. And so I was about 9, and they had one of these programs yet again.
Were you only
And
9 when you said this?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
and they came and they asked me, um, they came and they asked me again, what do I want? And I turned around and I said to them point blank, look, this is a waste of my time because y'all don't do nothing anyone says. I just waiting for y'all to die so I can do what I want to do anyway. Right. And I'm like, that was the reality. Since I was just that's me. I just gonna tell you as it is. I'm not wasting my time with that, you know. So yeah, I got stories to tell. I got
You
stories to
got
tell.
stories. There you go. So y'all want to come on to the dark side and ask for stories. He got stories on stories, folks. You just need you need to ask the right questions.
Listen, I can
Well,
I can still hear the gasp. I can still hear the gasp of the old people when I told them I was waiting for him to die.
oh, he said we're still waiting. No, some of them people did, you know, he did what he wanted anyway.
Yeah, they were still dead. They were dead. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
He got to do some of the things he wanted to do anyway, but not all.
yeah, I moved.
Yeah.
I moved a few times since then. So, yeah.
Yes, I always remember that as the story, just to remind myself that it could be worse. Can you imagine? I could have church members telling me that. We're just waiting for you to die so we can do what we want. Nobody has said that on my watch. So that's good. They've all been very much empowered and ready to get on, and you're doing your stuff. Well done. Praise God. Hallelujah. Amen. There are some people that would wish me dead, but those are for other reasons.
Yeah, what?
I'm a girl.
Okay.
I don't bend to their will. Lots of people want me to like bend and do what they say, and because I don't, I think they just hope that I'll die.
Yeah.
They're still asking all those questions.
Ugh.
Oh
Anyway,
dear. Anyway. Well, it's been an entertaining evening. We didn't get onto the second half of this dark side, but we did do at least the first half some justice, I think, in a whole hour. The second half was actually a request of our son who doesn't watch the dark side, so he won't know that we didn't do it. That's pretty good.
yeah.
We'll do it next week. How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
We'll try.
I'm sure there'll be many other things come next week.
There will be, but I know you've done the research for this one, so then at least we could do a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Right now, it comes to the time where we're going to say goodbye. We're going to end here. It has been so nice to be with you all. Daniel, it's good to see you in the comments. Can't wait for us all to hang out again in actual person. This pandemic is killing us all, I think. It's just difficult. It's tough. It's hard. We're having, rough times. Missing all of our people. Every week it's something else. Yes, every week. The dark side has enough legs for a long time because sadly, until Jesus returns, there will be a dark side of this earth. And so the show is aptly named, I guess, for that reason. But we're going to wish you God bless. Have a wonderful week. Peace. And see you next Sunday. I think we only have 2 more for this season before we're on a break. I think it is. Shall I check that? I've said the correct information?
Yeah, you can if you want.
All right, let me check.
Yeah. And for me, I'm out. Just gonna say to any other pastors that want to talk their nonsense like that, just don't do it in my church. Yeah, because I tell you straight, catch me outside. How about that?
On that note, we have 3 more episodes for this season of The Dark Side. We're so glad that you're with us. Like, subscribe, share, send your comments in, help us to pick our new topics. And we look forward to seeing you next Sunday on The Dark Side or whenever we catch you up during the week because we know you watch it all throughout the week. Blessings until next time. Peace. Bye. No?
Yeah, later.